Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start the no slide show. So thanks for joining us. Let me just introduce myself first. My name is Jean-Marc. I'm working at JUNIPER Networks, and probably the main reason why I'm here today in this panel is because I'm in this conference in the program committee since the first edition in '99. And I would be really interested to know who in this room was at the first conference in '99. Okay, wow, great. So I think that was a nice journey. At that time, it was the MPLS Forum, I think the name, before it changed to MPLS World Congress. So I'm very excited to join you in this panel. We are going to talk about from cloud to MPLS, and we really want to have this session as less cloudy as possible. So we are going to try to really understand what are the challenges, the real challenges, get the views of the panelists on that, if there is something to be done and what, and how realistic it is. So something which is very important, it's not our session here, it's your session. So most of the value will come from you guys in asking the right questions, maybe also bringing some point of views. We are not against that. For your information, all these guys who will introduce themselves one by one are really not talking to each other, so they hate each other. So it's going to be very easy to bring the fire on stage. So really depend on you. So let's start maybe by introduce the guys here in this panel one by one. We start from you, Wim, maybe.
Do you hear me? So my name is Wim Henderickx. I work in ALCATEL-LUCENT, and
we have no sound, I think. Yeah.
Better? Yeah. So my name is Wim Henderickx. I work in ALCATEL-LUCENT. I'm responsible for the consulting engineering team, and related to cloud, I'm doing some work with customers to try and see how can we solve some of the issues they have expressed to us. And also doing some work in IETF with a number of people sitting on the left-hand side to actually try to address some of those issues and actually get to a standardized solution for some of the issues and how we can actually bring the cloud and MPLS and how we can merge them together based on different approaches.
Hi, I'm Nadeau. Whoa. Yeah, let me first say I'm glad we're not talking about PBT again this year. We can, but I hope not. I'm at CA Technologies, where I'm partially responsible for development of a new network management, performance monitoring, and fault management application. And my perspective is definitely from a slightly different perspective than Wim and some of the other equipment vendors here today, where I'm writing pure software. And that's kind of a different perspective, which I guess is interesting from these guys.
Hi, my name is Peter Kao. I'm with a company called IP INFUSION, and we actively look at ONF. So we're a member of ONF, and we have looking into SDNs lately with a lot of our resources. And also we're also a pure software vendor, so we don't make equipment, so we could look at the same issue from a different perspective.
John Evans with CISCO, working on technical network strategy in support of service provider cloud computing.
Looks like I've got my own microphone today. Nils, Swart, JUNIPER Networks. I'm a product manager in a strategy and product management role for new innovations across the network. And my perspective on this is we're not just a hardware company, we also do software. And the area that I'm particularly interested in is how do we bridge that gap between end user applications and the networks that we know and love today, and how do we do that in a way that's both comfortable for people running the network and useful for people that have applications and develop them.
Okay, thanks, Nils. Thanks, guys. Also, I would like to know if in the room, by any chance, I know we have mostly networking guys, either engineering, operations. Do we have, by any chance, some people from the IT side in the room? I do not expect, to be honest, many hands here, but is there anyone here working for IT? Okay, not much, so that's going to be... So we have some representation, fortunately, here in the panel, and I think that's going to be, I think, part of definitely of the discussion. From cloud to MPLS, there are two words, cloud and MPLS mainly. And we are not going to talk much about defining MPLS, but just if we consider that MPLS was designed and developed for the birth of internet, if we assume birth is the last 15 years, it was essentially addressing two needs. One was about scaling the network with all the capabilities we know, traffic engineering, load balancing, multicast, optimization, whatever. And on the other side was about functional needs, such as adding more capabilities like layer 3 VPN, layer 2 VPN, VPLS, etc. So what is interesting is that it's a technology that is alive because it's always progressing in order to solve new problems coming here. And this is exactly what we want to address today in the session. There is something new coming in the picture, which we call cloud. We need to discuss a bit what it is and what it means for the network. So that's the main first question I would like to ask to the panelists is how they define the cloud and what it means for the network. So who wants to start? That one?
I can start.
Don't be shy, Viv.
Yeah. So, I mean, cloud is, the interesting thing is always if you start about cloud, everybody's drawing a cloud circle, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of people, I think, because what is the interesting part with cloud services is actually, as we have been debating, I think, over a number of years, how we bring IP and optics together. We are now actually into a situation where we have to bring applications and IT and networking both from data center as well as the IP MPLS or internet networks together. And that is actually what cloud is about, and it's also about outsourcing and bringing new business models in place which are helping service providers to actually get new services, new revenue streams, and as a result of that try to accomplish something where actually more money can be made of, and in a way that it's actually helpful for many people, small enterprises, end consumers, VPN customers, and so on. So as such, it has the applicability in a lot of domains. And that's also the interesting part, and that's also why there's a lot of fuss about it, because you actually have to bring it into perspective. Which problems do we want to solve, and where do we want to focus ourselves upon, right? And that, I think, is also an important element.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. You know, cloud services is about delivery of services. There happens to be a cloud there, but it's for the service provider, whether it's content service provider, you know, CSP, MSP, traditional SP. It's about delivering services and making money. The network, to me, is a means to an end in that scenario. And so, you know, our efforts need to be to help drive that business ultimately. Otherwise, there's really no point. And I do agree, and I feel really strongly about the disconnection between, you know, applications and the network and network services. And I think that's really a problem today, and that's hampering deployment of those cloud services. So we really need to fix that problem.
As we progress on the panel, can we also tune a little bit the question to what it means for the network? I mean, what is cloud bringing as a challenge for the network compared to what we had before?
So, well, the way I look at it, if you look at cloud, right, there are some attributes. One of them is it tends to streamline the workload, right? So that it will enable self-service. And secondly, it tends to encourage mobility of workload so that you can pool your resources and become more elastic, right? And with that, if you kind of slow down and take a step back, and you come to realization that if you really want to do that, the network somehow has to present itself with more visibilities, such that in the process of streamlining your workload and make your workload mobilized, the network has to become factor into this process so that you can do the job more complete, right? Without the linkage from the network, it would be less efficient, and it would be less cost effective for you to do that. And that's how I look at it.
In terms of defining cloud in the context of the impact on the network, I tend to break it up into private cloud being, within an enterprise, public cloud being accessed via the public internet, and virtual private cloud being a service provider delivering a cloud service as a managed hosted service to enterprises via the network that they own. In terms of the biggest impacts that I see in the work that I'm doing, which is focused on that last case, SP sort of virtual private cloud, there's the tenant segmentation and scale within the data center. There's the interconnection between data centers, so data center interconnect. There's fundamentally the linking of the two, the linking the data center instance to the NGN instance, if you like. And then lastly, I think the point that Tom made, the optimization of like the service interworking with the network, how you get that network awareness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Awesome. We're going to do this in round robin.
No, not
round robin.
just to start.
So I think I've got a microphone problem.
No, it's okay.
beeping?
It works. It works
Right.
nice.
But it's like beeping.
Ah, okay.
So maybe it's going to load up. So in terms of cloud, I mean, I think a lot of it has already been said. Yes, and it can mean many things to many people. I think the sheer simple answer to that would be elasticity. And elasticity is, ultimately about taking barriers away, taking those barriers away of service instantiation from applications to the network, from the network into the end user. And for that matter, whatever we call it cloud, call it anything else, as long as it takes away those barriers and helps us get to a very elastic way of operating, then it will ultimately benefit the end user, and everything that benefits the end user will ultimately help service providers and ultimately also us vendors here.
Mm-hmm. One thing I would like to hear from you guys is also one of the characteristics we expose related to cloud computing is the mobility of virtual machine, because apparently, I mean, what happens in the cloud computing area is what happened in the network with IP and MPLS, which is the notion of statistical multiplexing, so filling physical pipe statistically with packets. And we have the same paradigm now in the computing area by distributing VMs in a limited amount of physical resources. So we talk about mobility, which is something that we all understand clearly what happened within a data center. But as far as we are concerned here, we would like to understand also from you what it means at the one level. What do we really need in terms of mobility of virtual machine? What is required? So first in. Okay, first, Wim, then.
Sorry, guys. I think if we talk about mobility, I think we have to distinguish two cases. And I think that everybody talks about VM mobility, you move the IP and MAC and everything with it. And I think there's a little bit of confusion about that because I classify mobility in two categories. First of all is the one where you actually, for maintenance reasons or for operational reasons, for example, disaster recovery of a data center, you actually move things around, right? And as such, this is a mobility where session continuity is less critical. So in other words, if you have ongoing communication with that virtual machine or with that application, it doesn't have to be sustained, right? So that's, No, you don't pause the machine. For example, you say during my maintenance window, I actually move something from place number 1 to place number 2 because I'm going to do some maintenance, or I upgrade the servers or what have you, right? Mobility number 2, or the second element, is where you want to do that with ongoing sessions where actually communication is actually continuing during the mobility event, right? And I believe this morning, Yakov, we are working together with him, we have worked together out a number or a way or a number of elements on how to actually do that and achieve that in order to do that with full continuity of sessions. And it gives another dimension to the problem, basically, and it creates a number of additional challenges. And what is very important, I think, if you talk to people and you say, do you want mobility? Everybody says yes. And then if you go into the details, people have a different perspective on that. And I think that's very important to get more clarification and people actually expressing what they actually want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I guess we were talking about this earlier. There's